Welcome to Camp Constitution Radio with your host, Hal Shurtleff. Show is heard on WBCQ The Planet every Tuesday and Thursday evenings at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also pick it up on YouTube. Just visit our YouTube channel, Camp Constitution. And you can also pick it up on ipmnation.org. I believe it's broadcast every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Podomatic, that's a site, podomatic.com, and just put in Camp Constitution, and you'll be able to find our show. This show is brought to you by Camp Constitution, which, among other things, runs a week-long family camp, and this year's camp will be returning to the Lakeside Christian Camp and Conference Center in beautiful Pittsfield, Massachusetts, which is in the western part of the state. And as we have over the last 10 camps, we have a great lineup of instructors. And for more information, please visit our website, campconstitution.net. Now, on this show, I'm going to talk a little bit about these hate crimes or hate crime hoaxes. But first, I want to discuss the term hate crime. Now, I don't know of any crime motivated by love, so I think it's sort of a doublespeak, a hate crime. Wouldn't you think that all crimes are motivated by hatred, or at least not an overbiting love of the victim? The term hate crime started to be used in the 1980s, and it's supposed to be a crime motivated by hatred of a person's race, religion, natural origin, sexual orientation, etc. And I remember, I live in Boston. I grew up in the city, and I remember a very ugly incident that took place. Someone I would refer to as white trash, a young man, I think he was in his early 20s. He assaulted an elderly black man who was minding his own business with his wife, walking down a street. It was at night. And he hit him with either a hammer or a board. I can't remember. I think it was a board he hit him with. And he called him some vile names, some racial epithets. And of course, I won't repeat what he called him, pretty vulgar stuff. And he was arrested and tried. Now, the actual assault and battery, the hitting him in the head, the man did survive, but he was brought to the hospital and he was, pretty badly beaten. For that, he got something like 6 months or less than a year. But because he used racial epithets, that landed him in jail for about 5 years or so. And I mean, and by the way, if he just hit him with the bat, maybe it was a baseball bat that he used. He hit him with the bat and took his wallet and said, "Thank you, sir. More power to you." He would have been charged with assault and robbery. But because he didn't, the motivation wasn't robbery, it was based on his hatred of blacks, or at least his hatred of this particular black man, he goes to jail. And I think to me, it's more like a thought crime. I mean, you think something bad of somebody, you're going to be punished more severely than you are actually robbing somebody. And I know something's not right here. Now, the man should have been severely punished for his evil act. The motivation really should not have been the issue, the actual crime. I mean, if he just yelled at him and called him some racial names, that in itself should have been punished. It would be, verbal abuse or assault. But that's the problem with our country today. We've twisted things around here. And as I said before, there's no such thing as a love crime. So why do we use the term hate crime? Isn't every crime motivated by hatred, or at least a strong indifference about the victim's well-being? Now, there's of course the recent hate crime hoax that took place in Chicago, made the news everywhere. Of course, when the story broke, certain people on the left mainly, people who hate Donald Trump, the leftist media, they wanted to believe the story. And I think it's part of our human nature, by the way, which is depraved, is that we tend to believe what we want to believe and not believe what we don't want to believe. And sometimes even when the facts are apparent. If this indeed happened, if there were two white men that did this horrible act, we would say these people should be punished. But what the left wants to do is say, you see, it's Donald Trump's fault. This climate of hatred, it brings out the nastiness in people. And this is what you get when you get a guy like Donald Trump in the White House. That is the narrative. But of course, we know what happened within a few days or within a week, actually. And I have to thank the Chicago police. The police chief did an incredible job. A lot of these a lot of big city policemen are nothing more than political appointees, and they will do the bidding of the left-wing mayors. Like in the city of Boston, last year in the city of Boston, actually it was last August of 2017. Time does fly. There was a free speech rally that took place on Boston's Common. And the narrative is that these people organizing this rally are the same people that organized the rally that was in Charlotte, I think it was in North Carolina, the week before, where there was some violence. A woman was killed, a woman was run down and killed, and it was other assaults and what have you. But the bottom line is this: these people, these organizers, had nothing to do with the people in Charlotte at all. They were this thing had been planned well in advance. Our mayor of Boston, Walsh, knew about it. The governor, the left-wing Republican governor, Charlie Baker, anyone could have simply went to their Facebook page and seen that this group that organized this event were local libertarians. In fact, one of the guys was someone that I know, pretty mild-mannered libertarian guy, and it was a libertarian student from a state college, Fitchburg. But instead, they said, "Oh, racism, we're not going to tolerate it. Oh, they have their free speech, but we're not going to tolerate it." And there were just thousands of counter protesters, and it could have got very ugly. They had to put just a small group of people who eventually showed up to be part of this rally, just a handful of people. Most of the folks just canceled and said, "Hey, we don't want to take our life into our own hands." And the Antifa mobs came out, and when they couldn't find any neo-Nazis and skinheads and racists, they went after the police. And so that was, in essence, a hoax perpetrated by the mayor of Boston, the governor, and all those people, and the police chief of Boston. He's no longer there, thankfully, but he just went along with it. But the police chief of Chicago, he could have bought into the narrative, but he didn't, and I have to commend him for that. But so eventually we found out it was two black guys that were hired by this Jesse Smollett, this actor. I've never heard of the guy. He had to be a homosexual, black homosexual. So he's got all that stuff going for him. I suppose if he was handicapped and black and a homosexual, that would have been almost a full house here of social for the social justice people. But it was a complete fraud, a hoax. And these aren't unusual. There's been plenty of them. In fact, in 1994, a liberal professor by the name of Lard Wilcox, University of Kansas, wrote a book. It was called Crying Wolf, Hate Crime Hoaxes. And I remember I have a copy of it in my library before the internet was so popular. And he pointed out that there's been a number of them. And he also pointed out that there's a lot of left-wing organizations that make money off of these types of things. Usually the Southern Poverty Law Center is one of the most egregious entities. I think they enjoy this. If you can't have a real hate crime, then why don't you go out and create one, and they can go out and have their fundraising letters and raise money. Oh, someone painted a swastika on a church or a synagogue, and we have to fight this hatred. Just send us money. And all these scared liberals, oh my goodness, the neo-Nazis they're about to take over the country. I remember not too long ago, I had an information table on Boston Common, and this very thoughtful black gentleman came by, young guy, probably in his late 20s, early 30s, and we had a good time. He was not sympathetic to our worldview, but he was very respectful and listened. But he has this notion that around the city of Boston is just ringed with neo-Nazis ready to pounce upon the black community and commit murder and mayhem. And he says, well, where are you getting this information from? Well, the Southern Poverty Law Center. You see their hate crime map. They'll have a hate crime map or hate groups. And New Hampshire, for example, has 10 hate groups actively operating in the state. And you look at two of them happen to be the same entity. It's a conservative Catholic group. I don't call them a hate group. I know some of these people. They're loving, decent people. They're what they call Vatican II Catholics, the St. Benedict Center. And, not everybody, there's maybe been a few examples of where somebody has said something inappropriate, like any organization and every group. But they're considered a hate group when they're really a hardcore hate group. Look and see how many acts of hate do they've done. I bet you can't find one police report in that area where they operate. They say they operate in Richmond, New Hampshire, which is a little town of about 2,000 people. You drive by there and you don't even know these people are there except for a little sign that says St. Benedict Center. And I'm thinking, this is a hate group? Are they going around burning crosses or crucifixes on people's property? Where's all the violence? Where's all the evidence? And there was a couple of these neo-Nazi skinhead groups. Well, I happen to be pretty familiar with people in New Hampshire. It says operating statewide. I'm thinking it's probably some white trash guy with a P.O. box in a trailer park, and yet they listed as a statewide operation. And my goodness, these hate groups, we have to do something about them. And I look at Maine, and there's one person, and he's actually a friend of mine. He doesn't have a hateful bone in his body. He says some things that the left doesn't agree with, and he got fired over it, and he held his ground, and he's listed as a hate group. Well, I guess Camp Constitution has not made the ranks of a hate group, but maybe we're not working harder. And it's just ludicrous, but you see this stuff. Now, I was doing a little research just a little before the show, and I wanted to go into, how many these hate crimes and the statistics. Now, the FBI compiles statistics on hate crimes, and I think the last statistics were 2017, and they said hate crime has gone up 17% over the year before. Oh, that must be because Donald Trump has been president. But it also said, well, it's gone up 17%, but we receive 1,000 more police departments are reporting, or 1,000 more. Well, if that was the case, then I would think it would probably go down, because if 1,000 more entities are reporting, and according to this report, the FBI report, there was something like 7,000 and something hundred hate crimes. 20% were against religion. There were so many against Jews, so many against Muslims. Now, there are some people that won't acknowledge hate crimes against whites or against Christians. It's almost like we don't count that. So you have to take that, and most of these were individual acts by individuals against other individuals. I guess if you look at a country of 300 plus million, that's probably not too bad. And sometimes these were resulting in robberies, but most of them were just acts where verbal assaults, from what I was able to gather. And again, that doesn't include a lot of hate crimes against Christians and against whites. That's a very few. Again, the politically correct worldview is that you cannot, blacks can't be racist, Latinos can't be racists, etc. And you would find that that's just the opposite. Of course, everybody has racist tendencies. Now, there was a good article in Breitbart recently, and it was entitled, how's it go? 15 recent hate crime hoaxes that might make you suspect there's a trend. And it mentioned, of course, the most recent one. Here it is, November 16th. A pro-gay, I should say homosexual, Indiana church was vandalized with slurs, including one reading, "Heil Trump." It was actually the church's own organ player who did it as a hoax. Firefighters battled arson at a church attended by African Americans. On the wall of the church, a presumed arsonist wrote, "Vote Trump," in apparent reference to the upcoming election. It was a sick hoax perpetrated by one of the parishioners. In Lafayette, Kentucky, a woman falsely claimed to have had her hijab stolen by white men wearing Trump hats. December 2016, a Plainview, New York man was charged with perpetrating another vandalism hoax in which he painted several swastikas around the campus of Nassau Community College. A Muslim woman made up another hijab-stealing hate crime hoax, claiming that 3 men screamed, "Donald Trump," attacked her. April 2017, an arson case in Charlotte, North Carolina, first appeared to be a hate crime when the perpetrator left a note reading, Our newly elected president, Donald Trump, is our nation builder for white America. You all know that we want our country back on the right track. We need to get rid of Muslims, Indians, and all immigrants. It was a hoax. May 2017, a racist note left on the windshield of an African-American St. Olaf student touched off campus-wide protests and got the college to cancel classes. It was a hoax perpetrated as strategy to draw attention to concerns about campus climate. November 17, 2017, a Kansas man defaced his own car with racist slogans. Police soon concluded this to be another vandalism hoax. December 2017, the U.S. Justice Department announced the conviction of Juan Thompson, a reporter for The Intercept, for making hoax bomb threats to Jewish community centers. And on it goes. So here is just an example of these hate crimes, hate crime hoaxes. And in Lord Wilcox's book from 1994, because he listed the infamous Tiana Brawley case, that was back in the 80s, where Al Sharpton made the news and put him on the map. Al Sharpton said something to the effect that this will make me the biggest blank racial epithet in the country. He'll be bigger than Jesse Jackson. So he just did it to promote himself, promoter that he is, an evil man, by the way. The Bible is very clear. It talks about in the Old Testament, I can't remember exactly which book it is. One of the first, I think it was, let's see. Well, anyway, it says that there are 5 things the Lord hates, 6 are an abomination. I'm not quoting it verbatim, but he said hands that shed innocent blood, people, those who sow discord amongst brothers, and that's what he does. He does it very well, and he's been doing it. He's become a millionaire over it. And Jesse Jackson did the same thing. I remember that there was an incident back in the 90s, or maybe actually it was probably in the early 2000s, Wallingford, Connecticut. The town, small town, it's about, 30 miles south of Hartford. And they voted not to give their employees time and a half for Martin Luther King Day. Now, it's a federal holiday, but so if you work for the federal government, you're off. You work for the post office or a federal job, you're off. It's a state holiday, but this particular town, they had an option of one day over another, and it had nothing to do with racism. It had nothing to do with neo-Nazis taking over the town and causing racial strife. It had to do with the budget, the economic issue. And so I guess they chose, and I don't remember all the details. So Jesse Jackson makes a big deal about it. They put billboards all over the state of Connecticut. They spend thousands of dollars in this campaign. Jesse Jackson shows up, makes a big grandstanding speech, and a guy shows up in a Klan uniform, and they made here's Jesse, good old Jesse fighting the evil white racists. And I had a letter in the local paper. I said, look at all of the money they spent on this fraud. They could have, with the money they spent on billboards and causing people to be upset, all the media, the coverage they got, they could have probably sent 10 worthy black students to a college for 4 years. 4 years of tuition for the money they spent on this stupid grandstanding act. And I added also for the rental of the Klan uniform. I don't know if the guy who shows up in a Klan uniform was part of the ceremony of the fraud, but I wouldn't doubt it. And that's another thing too. The media should be investigating these kinds of things, and they don't anymore. They just take everything at the corporate media anyway. Pretty much take everything at face value. They don't do a good job. This notion of the investigative journalist getting to the truth, getting all his contacts and all that, that's been a myth. Most of these people don't leave their offices. They've written their stories, or they'll make a few phone calls, and they'll never, call. The left will almost never call someone on the other side of the spectrum to get their point. That's almost unheard of. So anyway, so I do recommend that book, The Hate Crime Hoax. And by the way, there are crimes motivated by people's hatred. Hatred is a sin. It's a sin against God. And we as Christian people of goodwill who aren't Christians, should do what they can. But the way you do away, you don't smash hatred. You don't fight racism by smashing it, you do it by changing people's heart. And this is what the left, even the the liberals are well-intentioned. The left isn't. But the liberals don't understand that you can't fight something with violence. You have to change people's hearts. That's how you stop racism. You know, that you accept Christ as your Savior. Christ will build a new person inside of you. And you can't call yourself a professing Christian and say that you hate people, you hate a group. I would say that the evolutionists, the original evolutionists, the people who pioneered this, the eugenics, they are the true racists. They believe that certain races are inferior, and they're the true haters. Even though they might give lip service to, oh, I'm touchy-feely progressive, but these folks are the real haters, and they don't. But to a Christian, once you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, you know that people are made in God's image, whether they're white or black or Hispanic or whatever. So when you say, I hate that person because he or she belongs to a certain group, what you're saying is that you hate God's creation. Now, I think it's legitimate to have some to oppose people's worldview. I think certain religious perspectives should be opposed. That doesn't mean you hate the people who embrace these things. I don't hate the people on the left. I hate what they stand for. And, you know, I'd be the first one to help somebody. They get a flat tire. They need help. And I have liberal neighbors. I would help go to the extra mile to help my liberal neighbors. You know, that's where you show love, and that's how you overcome. That's the best way to overcome hatred, is with love. That's the Christian perspective, not this idea of violent marches and stupid signs and chanting. That's not how you oppose hatred. And the left wants hatred. They love hatred. They thrive on it. And, you know, I experienced this. I learned a lot during the height of forced busing in Boston in the 1970s. I lived in a predominantly white neighborhood. We were blue collar, middle class, a few white collar people sprinkled in the Hyde Park section. There was a small black population, and everybody got along fine. There were blacks in the predominantly white housing project, and those blacks took the side of the white housing project. We're from this project. We're one. And they would fight the blacks in high school when they would go after the whites and blacks fought. The blacks from this white project would side with the whites from the project. It was very interesting. But so I saw how the left operates. They have their agent provocateurs come in to town, and again, it doesn't take a whole lot sometimes to promote hatred. You know, we have a sin nature, and it got to a point where blacks were in Hyde Park. They were being harassed in South Boston. There was violence, of course. Whites going to black neighborhoods, or they got rocks thrown at them. There was an ugly incident where a black man. There was a anti-busing rally, and a black cab driver was drawn out of his car, beaten. He ran into a home, an apartment, and someone let him in. He did survive, thankfully, but within a short time, the man who owned that apartment that tried to help this man got into he ended up had to move out of South Boston because he got his place vandalized. But within a few days, a white cab driver driving in one of the black neighborhoods, Roxbury, he was dragged out of his car, beaten, and he died, I think, a year later from his injuries. That's pretty ugly stuff. And I remember, now I got caught up in some of this, but I ended up realizing, what was going behind the scenes. I remember I was driving my 1966 Ford van up the road, and there was this black man, an elderly black man, waiting for a bus. And there was a big mob of white kids, killed a blankety blank. And some of these people I knew some of them. Some, they would never act like this, but this idea of a mob violence. So anyway, they started throwing rocks at him, and I said, "Hey, get in, get in." Poor guy jumped in, and they were throwing rocks at my van, calling me names. And then I dropped him off in his neighborhood in Dorchester, or Mattapan. And on my way out, I was getting rocks thrown at me by black racists, calling me nasty things. So I was a man without a country, I think it seemed. I was getting it from both sides. It was quite an interesting experience. And I said, look at this. This poor black guy, he's working in the paper mill, which is now long gone. He had nothing to do with forced busing. He had nothing to do with the problems that some of these kids, these white kids, were facing in the high school. And I dropping this guy off. I'm helping this poor guy, and instead they should have given me an escort out of the community. They probably should have taken me to dinner. No, they tried to kill me. But you see this mob mentality. Then I remember there was a neo-Nazi group came to Boston, and they had a bus. It was like the size of a school bus, white power, the swastika, and these neo-Nazis had these SS uniforms, and they looked like they had rented these from Central Casting. I mean, these were perfectly tailored uniforms. And I said, and then the Progressive Labor Party comes into Boston, and they march into South Boston, and that started a riot. I said, I think these neo-Nazis and I think these communists are working on the same side. And that was back in the 75 and 76, 74. So I realized that we're being played, and hatred is a horrible, evil thing. And again, the term hate crime, something that I have always, to me, it's just, I've never liked the term, because I think all crimes are based on hatred, or again, or a strong indifference towards the victim. And the term hate crime is one of these social justice terms that, and it's only applied sparingly. It's only applied by certain groups against other groups, but whites and Christian whites, I guess, cannot be considered objects of hatred. And there are some examples where they do have whites who have been assaulted by blacks or Hispanics or homosexuals, and there's some, but for the most part, so I think a lot of these hate crimes that the FBI compiles are suspect. Anyway, we only have a few minutes left, and I can talk a little bit about this coming week. I'm going to be up in Aroostook County. And I know this show is broadcast out of Aroostook County, and we're going to be showing the Gosnell movie at several venues. On Thursday, that would be the last day of this month, February 28th, we're going to be showing it at the American Legion Hall, 3 Fleming Street or Fleming Road. It's a small town, but it's right just in the center, close to the center of town. American Legion Hall, we're going to be showing the Gosnell movie. It's going to be a dinner. We're going to charge $10, and just give us a call. Go to our Facebook page where you can see the events, and with the events, just click it on, and you'll see the Gosnell movie. So it's going to be Thursday at 6 o'clock, February 28th. On the 1st, March 1st, we're going to be showing it in Holton, Maine at Tang's Chinese Cuisine, 60 North Street, which is Route 1, and that's going to start at 6:30. This would be a free admission. We expect you to order off the menu, and we'll definitely pass the hat to help with my travel expenses. And then Saturday, we're going to be showing it twice at the same place. This will be at the Governor's Restaurant from 9 a.m. on Saturday, the 2nd of March, and then 3 p.m. on the 2nd of March. Then this is Governor's Restaurant, and this is right in downtown Presque Isle on Route 1, 350 Main Street. And we also encourage you, if you're listening to this show on a regular basis, you like what we do, like what we have to say, some of the great guests that we have. Sometimes I go solo when I have trouble lining up a guest in time or what have you. But please consider supporting us financially. Go to our website, campconstitution.net, where you can make a donation, a monthly donation, which what we prefer, $5 a month, $10 a month, even $1 a month. I mean, if every listener gave us $1 a month, we'd be able to have this show on many more outlets and have more of a voice, and also to beef up our our program, our overall year-round program. Anyway, with that, we want to thank you for listening. You're listening to Camp Constitution Radio with your host, Hal Shurtleff, heard on WBCQ The Planet every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon evenings at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until next week, may God richly bless you.